Oh, g'day everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. Tons to talk about tonight. Fantastic interview with James Rowe, our home ticket giveaway. Gills resigned. Josh got the rising star. It's all happening, so let's not hang about. Let's get straight into it. Good evening and welcome everybody to Tuesday Night Live this 12th of April. Glad to be with you once again. I don't know what that is on the screen, but we'll sort that out in a sec. In the meantime, g'day Peter, how you going?
Ian, how are you this evening? Very well, thank you.
Not too bad at all, mate, except I've got a weird little thing going on here. We'll sort that out. Massive week, mate. Massive week. Whoops.
Yeah, lots happening. Lots happening with there was obviously the girls' grand final, and then our game, and then the Rising Star, and then also the VFL news, which was Gil handing in his notice.
Yeah, just tons going on. That was a bit of a surprise. I didn't really foresee that. No one, I think, really had that pegged, but apparently it's a little while coming.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have had a clue other than the fact that just what I've read, and that is that he probably extended a bit longer than what he thought he was going to because of the pandemic. So he probably would have gone a bit earlier, but wanted to see them through to a bit of safety, I guess.
Yeah, and look, all jokes aside, I reckon on the balance of things, he's probably been the best CEO we've had for a while. Steered the league through a very difficult time, so kudos to him for that, of course, and it'll be very interesting to see who they decide to put in that chair, because there's no obvious outs. I think it may be Brian Cook.
Not forgetting his main legacy, of course, that being AFLX was the big the big thing from Gil, wasn't it?
Hey, look, it's the last premiership we've won in the men's, so don't knock it. Don't knock it. I mean, AFLW, of course, massive. Getting us through COVID, pretty big achievement.
I think, honestly, Fiend, that I think Gil's greatest legacy will end up being AFLW. There's no two ways in my mind about that.
Commercially, the AFL taking back ownership of Dockland Stadium is probably big. That I think that was about 10 or 15 years early, I think, on that lease. So as much as it doesn't affect us directly in Adelaide, it's still a big thing for the league. So yeah, he's done all right. And I don't know, Brian Cook maybe.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, they're talking about Gale or Travis Auld is another one. Apparently, he's high up in calculations. So be interesting to see.
It will be. I think his tenure is running through to the end of the season, if I'm right. I can't guarantee that, but I'm sure they'll have someone in place in the interim. So we'll hear about that in due course. And of course, we had the game on the weekend, mate, and the tables were turned a little bit after the showdown comeback. We just got pipped at the line this week.
Yeah, we did. I saw the first half in full, and I was bits and pieces of the second half, a few things on. But overall, I thought there was a lot of positives there. Again, I mean, if you're looking at I guess the process and the fact that I think we're all accepting that we're not going to play finals this year, and I think that if we're getting ourselves into a position where we are still continuing to get games into younger players, but we are we're getting results like that where we're not blown out of the water. If you look at the corresponding game last year, where we weren't in the game at all, I think that there was some promising signs. The other thing that I really, really like, Fiend, is that we've got a lot of pressures coming out from the SNFL as well.
Well, that's right. At the moment, there's a few blokes pushing for spots, and I spoke about that briefly with Jimmy Rowe, our special interview that you'll hear in a moment, talking about competition for spots and how healthy it is. And Big Riley had a good game on the weekend. Sam continued his form. There's a couple of others that are pushing through. Jackson Hately's had a good run of games. So it's going to be interesting to see. Richmond, another fast team, and it was speed that probably did us on the weekend, Pete. It'll be interesting to see what they try to do to combat that this week.
The only equivalent I can think of for playing football at Marvel Stadium is, it's like cricket being played on the Wacker in the 1970s, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Just concrete.
Just the game just pings around like you just wouldn't believe. It just doesn't seem quite normal, does it?
No, it's a little bit artificial, and I still say that, and I'd love to do some analysis on this, and who knows, I might be wrong, but it just seems to me that the teams that play a lot of home games there may just get a little bit of a boost percentage-wise, because the scoring seems to be higher, and if they're in good nick playing lower teams, then the margins, I think, are probably a little bit wider. I'd love to see the stats on that.
Oh, well, also they've got artificial conditions as well, so they're never playing in a rainy, windy, sort of boggy game outside. Yeah. So their percentages, there's no question that their percentage is artificially inflated.
Agreed. Do you see any changes this week?
Yeah, I do. Who came off? Because as I said, I missed a bit of the second half. Who came off for Cook? Who did he sub on for?
He came on for Hinge, who had a corked hip.
Right, so he's got to be in doubt.
Yep.
Do we have anybody else in doubt?
Not injury-wise, I don't think. Lockie Murphy pulled up a little bit ginger a couple of times. I think he's probably still feeling that neck a little bit and just getting used to having a plate in his neck. But let me just have a look at the injury list. Quite remiss of me not to be prepared for that, Peter. You'd think all these years I'd just have all that shit going, but
apart from Hinge, I do find it hard to see any unforced errors, unforced changes, because a 4-point game coming off a showdown win the week before. I mean, Thilthorpe is putting a lot of pressure on selection. I mean, I thought that the position that we got absolutely had pants pulled down was the ruck, of course. Riley just had an absolutely a game to forget.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, but they're not going to. I doubt they're going to change him. So I would think that if we've got an injury in the form of Hinge, then that might be the only change.
Yeah. Probably case for Chase, I think. But as you say,
well, he's got to be under. I mean, I'm surprised that he hasn't been under pressure, previously. But you would think that he'd be under a bit of pressure. And there's certainly, as I said, there's really good pressure coming from underneath. So Thilthorpe, Berry, as you say, in particular, those two players. But I just can't see them making a change. Tex goes back in, kicks goals. You've got to give Himmelberg and Gallant, a couple of extra games based on their performances, I think. So I don't think they're going to make any changes that will help Thilthorpe.
I floated on the weekend, Mac, that is there a possibility that we could run a triangular big man trio of O'Brien / Strawn, who should get a run, with Riley and Himmelberg, and sort of doing a three-way sort of a swap between ruck, centre half forward and the bench? No chance of that.
I don't think that they will. I just think that they're really, really they're welded. That got a shocking contract around the noose around their neck with O'Brien. I reckon they're just welded to Riley for a while, and I think he'd have to have a few really quite bad games in a row to make any kind of change like that.
Yeah.
So I think that they'll probably think, well, we've only lost by 4 points, and we had a 1 point, two or 3 point win the week before in the showdown. They'll think that they're travelling reasonably well. I mean, if you think about it, we've in 4 games we've had 3 games under a goal. We could be 3-1 just as easily.
Yeah.
So I think that they'll think that they're not travelling too badly, and I don't mind Berry and Thilthorpe getting a little run of games in the SNFL to really dominate, really hone their craft there. I think that's not a bad idea. So I think there's not going to be any unforced errors, and I think that Hinge, I thought, when I mentioned I thought there'd be a change, had in my mind that there was a substitution, an injury sub. So, yeah, possibly Hinge out, and whether they then bring Cook in and sort of a wing-type position, and then perhaps bring up Berry maybe to injury sub. They've got to give Kick Pedler in the 2s to get him some continuity, I think, Fane.
Well, as long as they play him in the midfield, they seem very reluctant at the moment, and whether they know something we don't in terms of just miles in his legs, I'm not sure, but it seems a little odd that he's not getting more midfield minutes at either level at the moment. Just looking at the Adelaide website, Hinge is a test, McPherson is a test on his hamstring, Zach Taylor broke his thumb on the weekend, so he's out for 3 or 4. And then, of course, we've got poor old Seed ongoing. So, not too bad on the injury front there.
Pretty good.
So, yes.
Well, they might even go, if Hinge comes through, if Hinge pulls up fit, they might even go unchanged.
They could do. Just rounding off the discussion on the game last, what are your thoughts? I felt the inclusion of Sloane had a double effect. One is that Sloane himself wasn't terribly effective, and we spoke about the lack of centre clearances from both him and Matt Crouch on the weekend. But I think the knock-on effect was the reduced midfield time of Harry Schomburg and the reduced time on ground in general for Harry. I saw him play a bit on the wing. I saw him playing sort of half forward-ish. I think he had 12 centre bounce attendances. Sloane had 16. To me, the Sloane situation is really detrimental to Harry's development at the moment.
Absolutely no question about that. And I mean, it's almost, it's one of those things you like to mention and talk about, but you sort of think, well, what's the point? Because they're not going to change. They're just not going to, if they haven't changed it by now, they're just not going to. No. He had 17 touches, and, if you're first choice midfielders, it's just, it's just not enough. And he's just not, he's just not winning enough of the ball, and he's taking up a lot of time in there, as you say. But one of the stats that really, really bothered me, Fiend, was that if you looked in combination of Sloane, Laird, and Crouch, between those 3 players, I think I remember there was something like 32 kicks between 3 players. 32 kicks, and that's those 3 players. That's effectively that's your primary midfield.
Yeah, that's right. And look, it showed, because we don't have any separation from stoppage at the moment. Essendon showed us what a quick midfield can do in terms of spreading really, really quickly and getting outside the contest. And there were times when it looked like they were really going to break the game open, and they probably didn't capitalise on their chances through the middle part of the game and kept us in it. And to our credit, our work rate was really good in terms of sticking with it. But it just really, even the commentators were discussing how slow our midfield was, and, just makes you wonder what the selectors are seeing or what they place the most importance on, really.
Well, the only midfielder that we've got that gets any kind of separation at Keys, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The Caldwell goal in the second quarter, when unfortunately, you're watching Matty Crouch sort of crab along behind John Caldwell, was just terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah, not a good look. Anyway, look, as you say, it's almost not worth talking about now. But with Harry sort of finding a bit of form in the second half against Port, it really bothered me that it was a backward step for him. We need to just have him front and centre, and if he is struggling with form, or if his disposal efficiency is down a little bit, That's the player that you want to persist with, not a bloke on his last legs whose best years are behind him. We want to persist with a bloke whose best years are ahead of him.
Yep. No, absolutely right. And, I'm relatively satisfied because we're competitive. Our percentage is quite good.
Yeah.
That tells you we're sort of trending reasonably well. But there is this elephant in the room issue of an old and slow midfield that we just don't seem to want to address. And I think that, for punters like us, Fane, when we sit there and watch an interview with the coach and he starts talking about, well, we've got a stacked midfield, you just know then that really you're wasting your breath.
Yeah, exactly. we're not watching the same game. Anyway, we can move on from that. Just before we do, though, just to mention that we are giving away home game tickets to the Tigers match this week. We have our normal 2 general admission tickets, plus Scoot has also kindly donated a general admission ticket. So we could be filling half the crowd this week. So if you do want to get along to the game on the weekend and you're able to do so and you want general admission tickets, please put your name in the channel. Did I make, Peter? I made the tickets channel. Put your name and nothing. If anyone chats in that channel, Peter, I'm going to ban them for a week. Just put a dot in there so that I can see your name, and we will give those away by the end of the show. So don't waste your time. Get into the tickets channel, put your name in there, and we will see what happens later on. Now, Josh Rachelle got rewarded for a fantastic start to the season with a Rising Star nom. On the balance of things, you could say overdue, but he's had a few mates this year with Dacos and a couple others, but great to see him get a nod.
Yeah, and I tweeted yesterday what I really enjoy about Josh is his capacity to execute the simple option. The option,
the obvious
that
one,
you look at and think, that's he just does the most obvious thing. And when I see a lot of junior kids play Fiend, the ones that are the coach's pets and the ones that sort of advance through, they're the ones that don't try and complicate the game.
That's right. Take the first option.
Yep. And by the time, you see them, some that try and complicate things, and by the time they're thinking about the second and third option, then their mind is scrambled.
Yep.
And what that lad has is a very, very clear head, and he gets that first option and bang, he just takes it. He doesn't think about it. He doesn't question himself. He takes that option, and invariably it's the right option. And invariably the team's advantaged by it.
Well, Pete,
does not try and do too much.
Yeah, it's a very good point you raised, and it was again highlighted on the weekend when you saw Matt Crouch with ball in hand slowing the game down, a la Jake Kelly, Roy Sloane at times slowing the game down. There was a marked difference between when we did take first option and move the ball instinctively, and when we tried to be too cute and either play tempo or whatever. It just doesn't work for us. And you're right. Josh does the right thing at the right time, and when you marry that sort of instinct with a really good footy IQ, you've got a champion on your hands. And by goodness me, if there's anyone that you want to look away, no, it doesn't have. You don't see
him, dodge 3 players and have 4 bounces and kick around the body and do a whole lot of bells and whistles.
Yeah.
You don't see that at all.
Yep. Right. Let's move on. Well, just the other thing about the weekend, of course, was the return of Tex. Pete, what do you think of that?
Oof, it was good.
Very good. Very good. And, I've been a proponent for the last couple of years of giving Darcy the keys on the basis that Tex was on his way out. But he's looking as fit as he ever has. And he stripped pretty fit at the beginning of last year too, until sort of 2/3 of the way through the season. And as it stands right now, and with Darcy not showing anything, I'm happy
for
old's Tex. 32?
32. How old's Hawkins?
A similar age. Both
They just
probably
both look like they could just stand in the goal square for the next 5 years, don't they?
well, they both look like they're in career best form, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I mean, Tex was leading the goal kicking halfway through the season last year. Hawkins ended up winning it, I think, didn't he? From memory?
Yeah, not
Or he
close
would have
to
been
it.
around the mark. So, yeah, I've changed my tune a little bit on the whole debate around Fogarty and Walker because Darcy did have an opportunity the first 3 games this season, and he didn't take that opportunity, in my opinion, Peter.
No, not at all. No.
And someone like Elliot Himmelberg looks to be taking... I'm not on his bus, don't worry, I'm not getting back on the Berg train because that coincides with a distinct drop in form. So I'm going to stay off the Berg train no matter how well he plays. But he has taken his opportunities so far this year, Himmelberg. Riley Thilthorpe's obviously learning and a work in progress. But Tex can stay there, if you ask me, for as long as he wants.
Yep.
As long as he keeps performing.
I'd be surprised if you couldn't just plonk him in the goal square for next year as well.
Well, and you know what, Pete? Tex and Rachelle are very similar players in terms of their instinct. And I think you could find a little 1-2 punch happening between those two. I think they might gel really well in the forward line.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah. All right. Just the other thing over the weekend, of course, was the AFLW Grand Final, mate, and 3 out of 5 for the girls. Debate on Twitter today about and Caroline Wilson having a crack at Stevie Rowe for saying truth about the BNF having to be the Aaron Phillips medal, and Caro trying to turn it into a parochial thing. Stephen Rowe might have been parochial, but he was also being logical because to me, it's Aaron Phillips first and Daylight second.
Yeah, no question about it. And that seems just the usual saltiness over there and trying to sort of get in on the ground floor in terms of women's football, and it just hasn't happened for them. And it's the home of girls' footies here in Adelaide.
Yep, agreed, 100%. Now, a reminder to people, and we do have 1990 Crow with his hands up there. If you do want to have a chat about anything to do with recent events, then please put your hand up. But in the interim, Peter, I think before we go too much further, I did have the pleasure of interviewing James Rowe earlier, and it's probably a good time to put that on. What do you reckon?
Go.
Well, it would be a good time to put that on if it was actually working. So we'll keep talking while I sort that out, Pete.
Is that a good start? Is it a reasonable start to the season, Jimmy? I think.
Look, I think so. I think he's not going to be a player you're going to get something out of every week, is he?
I thought it was really interesting. Who was it? Someone on Twitter put in the stats comparison of Jimmy Rowe and Connor Rozee.
I didn't see
Guess
that.
who was out in front?
James Rowe, eh?
Yep.
Well, that's very interesting. Connor obviously being we're very privileged. The absolute standout in terms of draft choice. But, yeah. Interesting. Connor Rozee's really fallen in a hole, hasn't he? Like, absolute hole. Whether it's by development or he was overrated and blokes caught up with him, I'm not quite sure. But, anyway.
He's not developed into the Robbie Gray that they thought that he would.
No, I think we've got that guy.
We've definitely got that guy, because the thing is that he's remained. I think I mentioned this last week, Finn, that he's still playing like a first-year draftee.
Well, that's exactly right. He hasn't put on a hell of a lot of weight. He's still sort of playing around the edges. He hasn't taken that step, has he? Anyway, no, I've queued up Jimmy now. So
okay.
Let's get in.
Let's go.
We're very privileged today to have the time of James Rowe, our young, or mature age, I guess, young, mature aged live wire forward. James, how you going, mate?
Hey Rob, how are you? Yeah, good. Pleasure to
Yeah,
be on.
pretty good. Thanks for giving us your time, mate. You've just come out of a weight session, have you? I hear.
Yeah, little weight session day in education. Just sort of a half day today. We had recovery yesterday, Monday. So yeah, so it was a little half day, a little pump. So
Yeah,
all good fun.
it's all maintenance for you now, mate, isn't it?
I wouldn't say maintenance. I'd say it's a bit more than maintenance. I've still got a little bit to work on with my body, but it's all good fun. Nothing wrong with a bit of gym. Get the tunes flowing. All the boys love it. So
All the boys get around it. Yeah, who's the monster at the moment in the gym?
Monster is in on music, or monster is in
As
lifting
in
weight heavy?
lifting.
Well, we do it in line groups, as in like forwards, defenders, and midfielders. So I'm only with the forwards. So as a forwards, you probably got Big Tex and Fog.
Yeah,
They chuck up a pretty heavy bench press and the like. So
yeah.
they're probably the main ones. But then obviously in the midfield, you got Big Riley O'Brien. I don't know what he's benching these days, but it'd be something crazy.
Yeah.
But
Pound for pound, you'd be around it though, wouldn't you?
What was that? Sorry, I missed that.
Pound for pound, you'd be around it though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad pound for pound. Yeah, not too bad. I'll leave it at that.
Well, Tech stripped pretty fit on the weekend. He looked like he'd been doing nothing much else but pushing the weight. So that's a good thing. Anyway, look, enough about them. Let's talk about you. I just wanted to quickly backtrack and talk about your pathway into the AFL, because it's not the usual, get drafted at 18 and come through the normal pathway. You had to work pretty hard for it, mate. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, my pathway probably going through the juniors was pretty normal. I played at Woodville, West Torrens from a pretty young age of like 11, 12. So I went up all through there through juniors. And my college footy sort of took over when I was probably under 16s, when school footy takes over. So I went to Sacred Heart and then just combined that with Woodville. And then obviously didn't get drafted in my under 18 age. And then stayed at Eagles, then played a bit of league footy there. I think I played probably my first season up. I was probably up and down under Godsey, Michael Godden. He's now at Crows, which is a bit of a small world of Adelaide, which is another story. But was probably played 10 league games in my first year, and then Godsey went to Crows and got a new coach, Sam Lonergan. Played every game that year. Had a little bit of interest from AFL clubs at the end of that year, but obviously nothing too substantial because I didn't get drafted. And then Sam Lonergan went to Richmond. We got another coach, Jade Sheedy, and had a probably improved again that year. We won the grand final. It was a very special year. Probably a game that was very one of the better games I've played in. And then lucky enough to get an opportunity from Crows that year, and I was probably 20 years old then. So it's not the normal pathway, but it's probably helped my footy. I think probably having life experiences, getting a job, training, it's probably all helped me in the long run. So I probably wouldn't change anything for the world.
Do you reckon, as the competition continues to evolve, do you reckon there'll be more mature age interest? Because there's a hell of a lot of blokes playing in the state leagues that you look at them and you think, geez, you should be playing AFL footy.
I think so. I don't think there's not really a formula to getting drafted. I don't think. I think if you're good enough, you'll get a game. It doesn't matter really what age you are. And one of my teammates, Jack Hayes, I don't know if you follow footy that well, but he debuted for St Kilda round one, had 19 kicked 3 goal, and he's been doing that in the sample for years. He's probably one of the better players I've played with, not including my AFL team now, but he was obviously too good for sample, and it just shows that I think he got drafted. I mean, it might be 25, 26. So I think there's no real script to getting drafted. I think if you're good enough, you'll get a game, and I think we're pretty just starting to work that out. But
So I mean, you're a small forward, but I would have thought certainly with the bigger blokes like Jack, that take a little bit longer. It's almost like a bit of an insurance policy to let them develop in the twos and pick them up in that early to mid-20s range. There's certainly more than one of us that were thinking, geez, why didn't we take Jack with a rookie pick or something?
Yeah, no, I think that is it. That obviously the bigger boys take a little bit more time to develop. So I'm not. There's probably a lot more to the draft strategy than I understand. So I can't really fully answer it. But I think probably how I look at it is if they're good enough, they'll get a game.
Yeah.
Jack's just one example of that. There's probably many more. So
Yeah.
But our recruiters do a great job. We've drafted a few very good players with late picks, so I think they know a bit more than me, and they watch a lot more footy than I do. So, but yeah, I think if you're good enough, you'll get a game.
Seems like a cushy job to me, recruiting, actually. Just sit back and watch a bit of footy.
Yeah, it is cushy, but they watch a lot of footy. You got to love footy, I reckon, to do that job.
Yeah,
so
you're probably right. So, I mean, you stepped in to the club in a real transition phase with a new coach or newish coach, and a lot of new admin and all the rest of it. So you probably don't have a hell of a lot of backstory, but how have you found it, the step up from SANFL and also just the environment around the club at the moment?
Yeah, well, just first, when I got to the club, everyone was awesome. I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. All the boys made me feel heaps welcomed, and probably the first thing that I noticed coming in from a sample club is just how close all the boys were. You sort of don't really think about how much time everyone spends together. It's sort of like, well, it is our job, and we spend probably 8 hours a day together, almost more time than what you'd spend with your family. So the first thing I noticed was how close all the boys are. We're probably a pretty young group. I don't know what the age demographic is, but it feels like that probably 2 to 3/3 of the group are probably under the age of 24. So it's an exciting group to be around. I've loved it, and yeah, all the coaches. Just I feel like we've got a real good group of people together, and I know I've only been there probably 18 months, but it feels like success is really close, and probably the results this year have shown that. Being kicked within 3 games, we could easily be 3-1, but we could also be 0-4 when we know that. So, it's a very exciting group to be around, and yeah, I love my time.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would have thought the mandate from the club when you were recruited was as a small forward, but we've seen you play fairly high at times and be almost a link player rather than a crumbing forward. Do you have a specific role, or is it fairly flexible? Is that what James has put in, to be fairly flexible around that sort of role?
Yeah, our roles. Yeah, the small forward role is probably a bit of it's a tricky role to sort of explain, but yeah, our role in our structure is to get higher up the ground and also be at the feet of the big boys. So sometimes you see me high up the ground, and then other times you see me real deep. It's sort of a hard role to explain, but our forward line coach James Rowe does a real good job with us, and there's a lot of small forwards in our team, and I think we're doing not a bad job, but at the same time we've got a bit to work on. But yeah, there's probably two ends of my role, getting up to the ground and also being deep. So yeah, there's probably times you'll see me up the ground and then times you see me deep. So yeah.
Do you sort of rubber band with blokes like Josh Rachelle and the other small forwards there, sort of up and back sort of thing?
Yeah, we sort of mix it up what we do, where we find each other. Someone might be a bit more tired than the other, so someone might have to go up the ground while someone rests. It sort of just mixes it up.
Yeah, and it's a real transition for the forward line for the Crows at the moment, because obviously we've had Tex out, and so Darcy's been in, and we've got sort of Riley on the fringes and Elliot stepping up this season, and Lockie Gallant as well. Do you feel like every spot's up for grabs at the moment, or do you think that there's a mix starting to happen there now?
I think we are trying to create a group that can sort of stick together and play more games together so we can gain experience. But I think the competition for spots is very good, and I think that's a healthy thing, especially in a young team. This week we had Riley Thilthorpe and Big Fog playing in the sample, and they both performed very strongly. But Elliot Hilberg, Lockie Gallant are also playing well. So I think there's right now, I guess Elliot, after his performance in the showdown, Lockie Gallant probably have that spot right now. But footy's a funny sport and things can change. So I think there's always competition for spots. And that's not only the big boys, that's the small boys too. And we all know that. And it's not just our position. It's all three spaces of the field where there's good competition for spots. And I think our sample team are 2-0. So it's a healthy thing. It's a healthy thing and something our football club is trying to be.
Yeah. Just on Lockie Glant, real quick, I guess he'd be spending a fair time in the weights room. Can you maybe just pin him under a barbell and just leave him there until he signs a contract?
Just
work that one out for us, James, can you?
I'm sure there's something going on there. But yeah, he's worked hard in the gym. I think he's put on 13 kilos or something since he got to the club. So I wouldn't want to have seen him before he was 13 kilos because he's not.
Well, I don't think you could actually see him. I think if he stood sideways, he was invisible.
Yeah, he's worked very hard, and I'm very pleased with how he's performing at the start of this year. It's a credit to him.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a fan. I reckon he's a bit of a gun. So hopefully he does sign on the dotted line. Getting back to you, of course. I guess in the end, it's an interesting mix that we've got up forward with Lockie Murphy now available, as well as Josh Rachelle coming in and at the moment playing that sort of small forward role as well. It almost seems like we're overloaded with small forwards. Do you see yourself or Josh or one of the other, like even Lockie for that matter, who was a midfielder as a junior, do you see yourselves sort of putting your hands up for a few midfield rotations at some stage?
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with putting your hand up to go up into the midfield. It's always something that you want to have a string to your bow, whether you can play forward or midfield, even back. You want to be able to do all ends of the ground. So, that's something that I'm looking at, and I'm sure the other boys are looking at. I can't necessarily answer it for them, but I think Rochelle's been put in the midfield a couple of times this year. So, it's probably more of a question for the coaches, the balance of our forward line and whether they want to see us in the midfield or whatsoever. But I think our forward line's performed pretty well at the start of this year. But the balance is probably more a question for the coaches.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because you, from memory, you played a little bit of mids at the Eagles, didn't you? You weren't always up forward, were you?
Yeah, I have played a bit of midfield in my time.
Yeah. And Lockie as well. So we've commented a few times on our podcast that our rotations seem a little bit skinny compared to some other teams. So it'd be good to see a few other blokes come in there like yourself and Lockie and Josh, etc., just to share the load. How are the with the competition for spots, how are the younger lads handling that in terms of their own development? I mean, you've got Sam Berry and Luke Pedler, etc., and yourself as well. You found yourself in the twos at various stages. How does the club deal with that in terms of your own development when there's so much competition?
Yeah, I can only talk on my own sort of experience with it, and it's sort of just something you just got to deal with. There's probably reasons why you find yourself out of the team. It's obviously performance based. So for me personally, I just talk to the coaches, see what they want me to do, see if there's anything else I can do, whether it's education based or tactics or body things, or whether it's a certain element of my game. Yeah, that's something that I try and do. So I just try and prove that in whatever game I'm playing in. So in our case, it's usually the sample. You just got to stay positive. I guess when you get dropped, you're obviously out of the team, but you're obviously not too far away. You've probably just played AFL, so sort of got to try and stay positive and just keep working hard, really, to get better.
Yeah.
I can't talk about how the other boys are going.
No. Yeah. I'd assume, though, that there's a fair bit of communication amongst the coaches and those players on the fringes about, what areas they need to work on, etc.
Yeah, no, the coaches are very good at communicating what they feel like need to get better. I've got James Rowe as my line coach, and he's very good at communicating that. Even if it's just a little trend that's happening in my game while I'm playing AFL, he communicates that with me pretty well. So the coaches are really good.
Yeah. And I suppose an observation that we've had watching the games, probably where we've been finding a little bit wanting so far is in transition, sometimes being a little bit slow. Is that something at the moment that the club's working on in terms of trying to get you guys up the ground to be links, etc.? Or like is that a focus at the club at the moment?
Are you talking like transition from the opposition's one
half.
back?
Yeah, from the back half.
Oh, as in we're transitioning the ball from the back half, or the opposition is?
No, we are.
Yeah, that's something we are, I guess, trying to work on. Is our ball movement. I don't think it's one of our biggest problems, but we're obviously a young team back there. So yeah, it's something we're trying to work on. But yeah, I don't really know how to answer that side.
No, that's all right. It was probably a bit of a jumbled question. I just noticed how high you and Lockie play at times, and I just wondered whether that was maybe part of the whole strategy to get the ball moving through the middle and make our forward 50 entries a little bit deeper.
That's probably a fair observation. There's probably times where we can go quicker, or there's times we can probably go slower. Obviously, you don't want to turn the ball. You don't want to turn the ball over in your back half. So there's obviously a balance of when you can go quick and fast. But as a young team, we are trying to build connection with all three lines. So that's what we're trying to work on.
Yeah. And you got Richmond this week, mate, and they seem to be getting back to some sort of form, and they are again another quick team. And probably one of the observations from last week's loss was we've maybe done for pace a little bit at times. Has there been some chatter around how you might get in behind Richmond to stop their run in a similar way that Essendon do?
Not as yet. We sort of haven't. We only we reviewed the game a bit yesterday and a bit today, so we haven't really moved on to Richmond. That more happens tomorrow. I think the coaches went down and watched the Richmond Bulldogs game, so I'm sure they have a fair idea of what we can bring to beat Richmond. I only watched a quarter or a bit of that game. We were playing Sunday morning, so I was trying to get to bed, so I can't really fully talk about it. But Richmond are obviously a pretty good team, so it's going to be a good challenge for us and something we're looking forward to.
I think step one is run through Shy Bolton.
That'd be nice. Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to run through him. He's a bit quick for me, so
a little bit.
We'll have to get someone else to do that.
Yeah, but from the sounds of it, mate, the mood around the club is positive, and it's like every player that I've spoken to from the club this year, and also at the back end of last year, just spoke about a spirit of building something together. Is that the feeling that you've got, that you're sort of starting a new little generation and you're all sort of building something together?
Yeah, that's definitely how I feel. I feel like we're a young group. I haven't really I don't have much experience on it, but I feel like, from players, from Geordie Dawson coming into the club, Mitch in from Brisbane, they sort of say that they haven't seen many groups of people work as hard as what we do. So I think our work ethic's there. Our knowledge of the game's starting to get better. Games played starting to get better. So all the experience and all that's starting to add up. So I feel like it is something that's coming. Obviously, a few results this year have been disappointing, but I don't know when it's going to come. But I feel like it's definitely not far away, and it's exciting, and it's something that we all want to be part of. And that's probably why we all work so hard, is because there is a good feeling around the club, and it feels like success isn't far away. Yeah,
it won't be for want of work rate, mate, because it's been very noticeable how hard you blokes work on the field, and any lack of success won't be for want of trying. So perseverance, etc. Look, mate, I'll let you go. Have you got an exclusive for me about your health? Because you sound like you got a bit of a cold. Are you all right for the weekend?
I'm fine. I've just got a bit of a blocked nose right now. I think I left my fan on last night, and it window was open, so I probably just gave myself a little bit of a runny nose, but I'll be all sweet.
Yeah, I don't expect late out James Rowe COVID.
Nah, well, if I have COVID, there might be a few more boys out. And we have to do a rapid test. We have to do a rapid test before we go into the club every day. If mine come up negative, you'll be happy to know. So you won't be seeing those headlines.
All good. Well, mate, it's been a good start of the year. A bit up and down in terms of results, but the showdown was excellent. You're a bit unfortunate last week. Take Benny Keys aside and just give him a couple of lessons. But I mean, can't knock any of you for trying at the moment. It's really good to see the young lads develop and see yourself involved as well. So appreciate your time, mate, and good luck against the Tigers on the weekend.
No worries, Rob. Have a good one, mate.
There you go, Pete. Sound a little bit under the weather from what I reckon. He reckons he's all right. Well, Pete's gone walkabout. Got bored listening. But there it was. It was James Rowe. Great of the club again to give us the time, and great for James, obviously, to give us the time as well. A really good insight. I felt like he didn't want to give a lot away, but
I did. There was something that I did want to pick up, touch on that.
Yeah,
found interesting, and it was something that I had in my mind to mention, and I kind of did when I was talking about the fact that Riley probably can't get back into this team, and I thought it was interesting. He was just talking about James Rowe, and I think that we probably are not giving James enough of a shout out at the moment, because if you look at our 4 games, we've gone, if you take out the Collingwood game, we've kicked 82 points against Freo, 96 against Port, 99 on the weekend against Essendon.
Yeah.
And that's a strong contributor to our percentage looking pretty good at the moment. And he's doing a terrific job. Those, given all the comments that we make every week about the midfield, the forward line is really functioning, very well.
Well, it does seem to be more cohesive when we get enough service from the midfield. It's probably the most, like on the weekend, it was probably the most spread forward line I think I've seen us have for quite some time. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
I felt like there wasn't any of this bunching up like we've been guilty of in the last couple of seasons. It seemed to be that the forwards were working in unison and running to good places.
Absolutely, and against Port as well, same thing. Himmelberg and Gallant worked really well together.
Yeah. So there you go. That again, as I said, many thanks to the club on that. Now, Peter, how many people have I got in the tickets channel? I've got 2 at the moment. I've got 2, so surely there's more people that want to go and watch us thump Richmond on the weekend. So you've got a little bit of time left to put your name in there. If you do want tickets, we do have 2 normal ones to give away, and also Scoot's made one available to us for a 3rd. So we'll pick a winner, and there may be a runner-up prize as well. Who knows? Now, just quickly before we get any further, 1990's been sitting there for about 2 days, so we better see what 1990's got to say. Come on in, mate.
G'day, Phoenix. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Yep, can do. How you going?
Yeah, good, thanks. I went to the game on Sunday, wasn't it? Yeah, it was really, really good to watch us do reasonably well, and get excited a couple of times when I thought we were going to take the lead and run away with it, but eventually, obviously, didn't quite happen. But that's okay. It was quite noticeable that when we went forward, that our forward line was doing really well every time I went forward. You only had to look at the inside 50 count. I think it was around 60 odd to like late 40s or something. I don't know the stat off by heart, but they were significantly in front. And so to even be within a goal at the end says that our forward line was working really well.
Yeah.
I thought the key difference at the end of the day was the ruck. We got absolutely monstered in the ruck by Draper and Phillips, particularly around the ground, and also both of their ruckman kick goals. That last goal by Draper at the end to kick a goal was just absolutely ridiculous. Rob lost his balance and just basically gave a freebie to him. So I really don't know where we go with O'Brien. I think he's a bit of a liability at the moment. He might be second or third in the hitouts on the table, but I just really don't see how he could possibly be in a future premiership side as we speak. I think we really need to look at a alternate young ruck at the draft, or this year or next year to develop, because I don't think he's the man.
It's really noticeable, isn't it, 1990, when he stops taking marks around the ground, you start to scrutinise his ruck work a little bit more. And without that presence around the ground and clunking a few, his value really diminishes, doesn't it?
Yeah, like he's never been a strong hit-out ruck. He's usually been competitive. Like he's supposed to be that extra midfielder where he can tackle and harass and handball. And as soon as he stops doing that, he sort of becomes extremely ineffective. I only have to remember, like, going back in the late 2000s when we had Ben Hudson, he was supposed to be a similar player to that. And he's just not doing those other things that make him that style of player that would actually be quite effective. Like, was it 2020 he won the best and fairest? Like,
it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, he was at the top of his game 2 years ago, doing that kind of role, and obviously that's why they gave him the 5-year contract extension. But he's not that player as we speak. So I don't know what the club does really. They're quite hamstrung with a long-term contract again, to a player that isn't playing anywhere near their worth, and just we're a bit stuck in a position where we're going to have to do something about it if it doesn't turn around.
I don't know about you guys. Pete, you might have an opinion on this, but a 5-year term for a ruckman is a bit of a reach, isn't it?
Oh, look, there's just some awful... I mean, that's a whole new episode, Fane. If we want to start talking about some of the contracts we've given out, we've got Miller on a long-term deal. We've got Chase Jones on a long-term deal. It's just
Sloaney was on a long deal. Still
Sloaney
a couple
on
to
a big
go.
long-term deal. Terrible.
Remember when we never used to grant more than 1-year contracts to blokes over 30, irrespective of who they were?
Yeah. Even Andrew McLeod,
that's right. Year-to-year contract. What happened to that? Bloody hell.
Saligo's on 4 years.
Yeah, that's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, I'm all for tying up the young kids if you think they've got something. And Jake, from the limited vision we've had of him so far, looks like a bit of a player.
He looks a talent.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an unproven talent so far, really. It's an unproven talent.
Yeah. I mean, Rachelle, fair enough. I can live with that one, but why on earth did they give... I mean, they gave Chase Jones a big extension as well. I can't remember how many years, but...
In a year where he had a game where he had 2 touches.
Yeah, on the back of it, some serviceable half-back work after being drafted as a midfielder. I don't understand it all. But anyway, like you said, mate, that's another one.
On to positive things. Josh Rachelle, I think we might have a bit of a Gary Ablett Jr. on our hands.
Yeah, it looks that way. He looks a bona fide champion, doesn't he?
But that type of player that 30 touches, 2 or 3 goals a game, I wouldn't be surprised if he reached those levels.
Would you, Pete? Because I wouldn't either. I mean, I was a bit on the fence about us taking him in the draft, but gee whiz, there's absolutely, no doubt. Him and Jason Horn at this stage are probably neck and neck 1 and 2 in that draft, I reckon, of the players available.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, what a difference it makes when you nail your early pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine theoretically we should have 5 of those running around.
Yeah, well, that's 100% right, Pete. When you actually put it that way, I mean, you could argue the second half of the first round can be a little bit hit and miss, but we should have at least 3 or 4 of that type of quality in our team, considering where we've been in the draft, where we've been placed in the draft over the last 3 or 4 years.
I think Phil Thorpe and Pedler could be that style of player. They're just they're not really getting played as we speak.
Yeah, I've got a sneaky suspicion that Pedler's going to be something special as well. As long
Just
with the caveat of the caveat is his body. I hope he hasn't got a Matt Crouch body with tight strings and all that. But I just like the way he can break free. He can get a little bit of separation from contest. I just hope he can get his fitness up to be an effective midfielder going forward.
I think he just understands the moment. He's one of those players. He doesn't need to have 30 touches to make an impact.
Yeah.
You just watch him, those little things. He just does a nice pass or does a nice inside collect and run out of a pack, or just little things you watch and you think, yeah, he's good.
Yep. Thank you, mate. Always good to have you on board, and your dulcet tones are most welcome.
Good evening, guys. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, Peter. A little bit of housekeeping to do. I don't know. Are you in any tipping comps this year?
I'm the worst tipster of all time.
Well, so am I, and stupidly decided that I wanted to be in a tipping comp this year. And I don't know whether you've got around our tipping comp, but we've got, how many people we've got now tipping? We've got about 80 in our tipping comp, right? And leading the pack are 4 blokes on 25, well, 4 people, I should say, because one of those is a lady, Claire, averaging 6.3 a round. Now, I don't know how you survive last round with West Coast getting up in a few of those, but we've got Harry, Brett, Craig and Claire on 25, and then we've got a cast of thousands coming up behind them. Where do you reckon I'm ranked?
You'd be down the bottom, surely.
That's the easiest prediction you've made all day. I'm number 67, mate. Number 67, averaging 2 less tips per round than our current leaders. So giving them a fair head start, which is a bit of a shame. But never mind. It's fantastic to see so many people getting involved with that. And I am in negotiations to wangle a prize for that competition, so watch this space and we'll have that organised in the coming weeks. Of course, don't forget, if you want to support the CrowCast, you can go to patreon.com/AFLCrowCast. The veteran tier members today got to listen to my interview live with James Rowe as I did it, and that's one of the perks of being a veteran patron, so you can get around and watch and listen to the live interviews as they happen. But any support is appreciated, as you agree, Pete. And the support that the CrowCast is getting is amazing. And to have, we've got another 20 odd people in the audience tonight, it's fantastic. So thank you to everyone for that. Now, Peter, let's have a look. Did anyone else decide to put their name in the ticket thing? We've got 4 people. Quack Daddy, Steamboat, Stu, Seeds Girl. Nikki, don't you have tickets? And B. Boyden have all got tickets. Have all put their name up. Now I'm just going to bring up my random number generator here. Now, Nikki, if you type in there again, Nikki being Seeds Girl, I'm not going to be happy. stopped. Tease girl, do you need tickets or not? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Well, why'd you put your bloody name in there for, you goose? Alright, anyway. And losers in there, beautiful. Alright, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So that 4. The generator is up. Here we go. Oh, and it is number 4 is the number. So and lose as the late entry, or the last man in, gets the tickets. Well done, mate. I'll be in touch with you afterwards. Now we do also have a ticket available from Scoot. So I'll just run another number if one of the others want number 1. So that's Quack Daddy. Luke, if you want a ticket, I'll message both you blokes afterwards and we'll work something out between the 3 tickets. All right. But thank you to those people for entering, and of course don't forget every home game we're giving away at least 2 tickets at the moment. Thanks to our benefactor, who I'm not allowed to name, so I won't name him. But thanks anyway to that person, Ray. All right, Pete, what else have we got to talk about? I think we might just about be done.
Just about, I think. How do you think we'll go on the weekend? Will we get up?
I don't. Yeah, no, I don't. Simply because I think we're going to have the same problem that we had against Essendon. Not quite as fast a deck, but it's going to be good weather. And they'll just be too quick for us, I think. And again, I think, I don't know what ends they've got with regards to their tools up forward, but they're managing it right at the moment as it is. So I don't think we can have the pace. What do you reckon?
I don't mind us this weekend. I don't mind us. I think we might, I reckon we might just sneak over Richmond this weekend.
Ooh, that's a big call.
Big call, but there you go.
Big call. They played all right against the Bulldogs.
Yeah. I'm a bit worried about the Bulldogs at the moment. I'm not sure they're travelling particularly well. So, no, I reckon if we can stick with them for 4 quarters, I think we're a chance. I think we can play, as we did on the last 2 weeks. I think, and that with that forward line functioning well, a bit of extra space there in Adelaide Oval, I think.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We'll soon find out. But look, all right, well, let's wrap it up. Thanks to everyone who's joined us on YouTube and also on Discord. Thanks to 1990 for having his say. Thanks to everyone who supports us on Patreon. And also, don't forget, whatever platform you're on, give us a subscribe and a like and a review if you like what you hear. It helps our algorithms and all the rest of it. We will be back at the normal time of 8:30 on Sunday night for the wrap show with Nikki and Macca. But in the meantime, Peter, thank you very much for joining us once again. And
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, mate. We'll see you all soon. Good night.